and I am live for the noon chat, people. My apologies. I thought I put it at noon, but I actually accidentally set it for 10 o'clock. So I was like, okay, what's going on? Everybody was like, Kurt! Mr. Zwain, stay blessed. 4 people waiting, 3 likes. Here's another like. What's good, Kurt Stewart says. And like I say, something that interests me on, top of the leaked footage that Mr. Ryan Garcia had to give the world concerning Javante Tank Davis and Devin Haney. And look, we got a lot to unpack, and something that I hardly ever see is Oscar Delahoya and Eddie Hearn. I know they've worked together before, but you guys know they've had this rivalry, this beef, and they've been pretty much at each other's neck between Canelo and, Canelo went to Eddie Hearn instead of Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya's butthurt about it. So everything that Eddie does, it's under the microscope of Oscar De La Hoya. And Eddie tried to get fights with him. He was like, no, he won't work with him, And then, of course, we had tyrants come in, like Thanos-like characters in the boxing community. And like Your Excellency, Turkey Al-Sheikh, Swift 718 coming in with that dose. Salute King, much love, Kurt. Keep schooling them. Appreciate you, Swift 718. God of War in the building. The man with the wrench says finally. Yes, I am finally in this piece. So let's, like Marvin Gaye says, let's get it on. Drinking my Irish sea moss, good for the immune system. Just got through working out, had to run some errands and stuff like that. Again, my apologies. So when enough people come on, I will start the face-off between Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn to see how that went. It didn't look like a lot happened, but I do want to see the body language, the back and forth between these two promoters, because believe it or not, Eddie Hearn has surpassed Oscar De La Hoya. But Oscar De La Hoya still has some star guys. How many star guys, we really don't know. I know he has Victor Ortiz, he has Ryan Garcia. He had Canelo Alvarez, which was the cash cow, and I think that was all of Golden Boy. But understand something about Golden Boy for a minute. Golden Boy Promotions promoted all of Floyd's fights down there. All of his fights. Okay, so that was the platform in which Floyd used, was Golden Boy. So everybody got some cash. Don't get it twisted. De La Hoya made money off of Floyd. Okay, and they had a partnership, despite what you heard with Floyd and Oscar, and they had a little bad blood when they were both fighting reasonably. Floyd's, all of his fights were on Golden Boy. Okay, so Golden Boy has some stock in a lot of things that happen in boxing history. Okay, so Golden Boy is not necessarily like a Don King or anything like that. It holds its own in certain platforms. Okay, they're along with the DAZN platform, which is smart because DAZN is deemed to be more stable than any of these other ones. Okay, because Showtime's gone, Fox is gone, HBO been gone. So it's a lot, man. It's definitely a lot to talk about. And give me a second. This is some gnarly tasting stuff. Anybody ever had Irish sea moss? I blend it. I get it in a powder form, but it's some good stuff, man. Good stuff here. So, but the face-off between Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn, Eddie Hearn has been getting into shape, and Oscar De La Hoya has his prosthetic abs. And we're going to talk about all Damn Oscar De La Hoya. And for a second, how are you going to have better abs at 50 years old than you did at 25? See, understand something about Oscar. Oscar made weight. Oscar was one hell of a fighter. Hall of Famer, Golden Olympian, and then some. And then some. But he was also a drinker. I mean, he wasn't the kind of guy that really focused on his body as much. Okay. And he was pretty much a guy, he was soft-centered. That's why when Bernard caught him with that liver shot, he went down like a ton of bricks. I mean, people could say, oh, well, you know, Bernard was bigger and this, that, and the other. Yeah, he was bigger. He was bigger. Swift 718, welcome to Counterpunch Gold. Man, I'm going to tell you, becoming a Counterpunch member in general is a great honor. You know, I put a lot of personal stuff on there. So you want to know more about me in depth, that's there, along with other footage that, you know, that's just not for free. You know, so welcome to the club. Appreciate you, brother. Much love. Much love, Swift 718. DJ Anton, hey Kurt, greetings from South Wales. CP to you. CP to you too, sir. South Wales in the building. This looks like that Rise mushroom coffee that people talk about. But you know I gotta rock with my Kachala. So it is what it is. But I don't know. I don't know what YouTube's doing. But I'll tell you this. Let's start the face-off. So we're just gonna go with the audio. I'm not gonna do any fancy tech shit.
Oscar Delahoya, Eddie Hearn, two of the most influential people in boxing who came together, friends now, made a big fight between Jaime Munguia and John Ryder. See that?
And before we get started, Swift 108, you're on a roll. I don't know, you're trying to raise the masses. You're doing a great job. Swift 718 coming in with that dub. He says, happy to be able to get that gold. Absolutely. Appreciate you, brother. Much love. Zik, watching from Mozambique. DJ Anton, shout out to my Mrs. She knock all of the bums out. Shout out to Miss DJ Anton for your capabilities and your potential. So let's continue with the Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn.
Wasn't so hard, right? Making
not at all.
co-promotion, no big deal.
Well, that's what it's all about. First of all, thank you. Thank you for sitting down, and you know, it really is a pleasure that we can kind of break bread and just make sure that we have the best fights for the fans.
Eddie, making co-promotion videos. How do you feel about it?
Wait, I had to look. I had to pause this for a minute. Because you can still tell, though, between Oscar and Eddie and Oscar, you know, Oscar was like, yeah, thanks for sitting down with me. I want to make something for the fans as long as we make that for the fans. And then Eddie just kind of looked at him. You know, you know what I mean? And it's almost like, Barrett, keep in mind, people, let me give you guys a backstory before I continue, okay? Between Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn, they were into it because Oscar felt, well, I don't have to work with Eddie, even if he's on DAZN. I don't have to do that. I don't have to deal with Eddie Hearn. You know, and if I don't want my fighters to fight his fighters, I won't. So Eddie was like, you know what? He's a fucking idiot. If you guys can remember, he was like, he's a fucking idiot. The producers, the executives of the DAZN determines who fights who, not you. Because if it makes sense, you're just the promoter. They're the promotional backbone, okay? The networks are the backbone to any promotional company. Okay, like look at Bob Arum. Top Rank wouldn't be shit without ESPN. Al Heyman is going through shit now because he's lost Fox, Showtime. Now he's on Amazon Prime. Okay. Eddie Hearn, DAZN. That's why he was like, look, let me cut out Sky because Sky don't need Sky exactly. If we got DAZN, because DAZN is now big enough to hold his own. DAZN. Bars. Okay. And some people did float around. You know, some people float from this place to that place, but normally it's the networks that are king. Yeah, I mean, he's not on Fox. Fox dropped it too, God of War. Yeah, they're not on Fox. If they were on Fox, they would still stay there. No. He's not on Showtime. Showtime dropped boxing. Fox dropped boxing. That's why he's at Amazon Prime. Because they needed someone. They needed something, someplace to air their fights. But if you notice something that was fishy, was that every fight that was mediocre to very minimal, just regular fight, every regular fight was on pay-per-view. And you're like, well, damn, why is this? This ain't a pay-per-view fight. Keith Thurman versus Mario Barrios was not a pay-per-view fight. Okay, but it was on pay-per-view. What that meant is the network was tired of eating the cost of the fight in the fight purses. So if the fight didn't do a certain number, they're going to still be held responsible and accountable for paying these fighters. And they were like, no, we're not doing that, Al. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to leave it up to the people, us, the consumer, to pay for these fights. And if they don't pay, they don't get paid. That's how it was. That's why fighters that had a guarantee of something had to wait a certain amount of time to get their money because it was on a different pay scale. Okay? That pay scale from pay-per-view, you wait a while. You know, that's why if I'm fighting, give me a guarantee. Because even if a guarantee is guaranteed according to a contract, you can't hold a contract liable for what pay-per-view didn't do. Okay? That's the whole thing. So Al Heyman's kind of like, hey, my hands are tied because this here is pay-per-view. So not enough people made that pay-per-view. Okay? Afternoon Kurt, counterpunch to you, brother. God bless. Marlon Thornell, God bless your back, brother. Counterpunch to you. So just making that known. Okay? So Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya was at each other's throat. But Eddie knew, like, look, Eddie is one of those DAZN guys, okay? He has vested interest in DAZN, just like AJ. Those dudes are making money from DAZN. So if you know you're at a platform that's getting you paid, okay, and what Sky Sports is done. That's why listen, if you look at AJ and then you look at people like Carl Froch, Johnny Nelson, those guys work for Sky. If you notice, though, Carl was always like this, but Johnny Nelson, if you notice, he was more keen on talking stuff about AJ. So most of the stuff now is pretty much unfiltered, as opposed to yesteryear where AJ was on Sky Sports. You didn't really hear a lot of that. A lot of that stuff was kind of censored. He wouldn't really come out and say anything too critical of AJ because AJ at the time was signed with Sky Sports. Okay? That's why for any of you smart or pro Wilder guys that says, hey, you know, he didn't take the $50 million to fight on Showtime in America for Deontay Wilder. Well, for one, he couldn't do that anyway. So pretty much AJ said something that he wasn't prepared to do anyway. He couldn't leave Sky Sports. Because in order for him to go to Showtime, he would have to cut his or break his contract with Sky Sports, which who the hell is going to do that? Okay, so Sky Sports was the platform that AJ and Eddie Hearn dealt with. Now they don't. They got DAZN. So a lot of changes have been. But let's continue.
Great. I mean, I think that the problem is actually Me and Oscar probably have a similar issue in that we're very outspoken and we do probably rub people up the wrong way sometimes. And the problem in boxing is some people, once you do that, will act off emotion rather than actually in the best interest of the fighter or the sport. I said about Bob Arum the other day, I think actually you could burn Bob Arum's house down and he would still do a deal with you that evening if it was the right deal. Do you know what I mean? And he's very good at that because I've seen Bob come up to me, cuddle me, and literally 10 yards away in an interview ruin me. You know, and I'm okay with that either. I think I've learned over the years that, particularly in America, sometimes they don't quite get our sarcasm and, you know, so, but I do think there's a movement now where people are willing to work more. And I think it really comes down to the networks. I think the sharing of fights, as we've seen with ESPN lately and DAZN, makes it so much easier. Because we should be doing much more. We have a very open relationship with Eric and those guys where if a fight makes sense, it still has to make sense. We're not just, you know, phoning each other up every day saying, oh, come on, like Munguia Ryder, great fight, makes sense for everybody. But there should be no barriers to, particularly us on the same network. But I do feel in boxing now, with that opening up of the platforms, it is easier to make fights. But it's all down to personal relationships and, you know, when there is peace, and I think it is good for the sport.
Oscar, to Eddie's point, when you're trying to make a fight happen, is it challenging to separate the personal from the professional? Because you guys do have cameras in your face all the time at these events, and sometimes things do get said.
Well, it's like Eddie said, the fight has to make sense. And I've been promoting now for 22 years, you know, and the reason why we've been successful is because we make the right fights and the right fights at the right time. And if Eddie has fights, if Eddie has fighters that make sense to us, to Golden Boy, then we're more than happy to. We're open to making this happen on the zone. We share the same platform. We should be working together more often. We should be the leaders of boxing and show the world that we want to make the great fights for the fans. That's the bottom line. But ultimately, with my experience, the fight has to make sense.
Well, Eddie,
So let me pause there. The J. Roos Theory in the building. What's up, brother? Counterpunch to you, Marlon Thornell. Some of the best fights I've seen lately are on Pro Box TV. True 50-50 fights, and they're free on Wednesdays. Man, that's reminding me of back in the day, Friday night fights. Yeah, Tuesday night fights, you had Friday night fights. And then they were both very entertaining because, like I told you guys, like the best guys fighting each other. Sure, it's exciting, but you have to be willing to understand that maybe those fights are not the most entertaining based on these fighters' reluctancy to make a mistake. So then you will have a guy, that you will have a chess match, and then you will have a fight that's not exciting because you guys are not willing to do this. Maybe they're overthinking or whatever because they're using their boxing brain too cautiously. Whereas you do see these fights, like Marlon said, these fights, like on Pro Box TV, and like I remember, like Friday night fights. Oh man, I used to love Friday night fights, bro. And they were some of the best fights you ever wanted to see. You've seen back and forth. I remember in my early 20s, dude, that's pretty much all I did. I just wish I had a platform then to watch these fights, and honestly, it would have been impossible at that time, you know, because for one, I was in a rural area. For two, we didn't have cable like that, so like it was hard to do so, you know, especially live. We didn't have that type of thing. Matter of fact, you didn't even have YouTube then. We didn't have YouTube in 2001, 2, 3, 4. I think YouTube came out in 2005, right? So we didn't even have any of that. You know, all we had was word of mouth, bars, restaurants, you know, Buffalo Wild Wings, things like that, when you can sit around and, you know, talk your stuff, you know, or you went to a fight, you know. So live fights were always exciting. Just found out last night David team ducked a $10 million offer to fight Canelo on DAZN. They said Canelo has to come over to Amazon. Troll Master Mike 6969. I didn't hear about that. If you inbox me on DAZN, I could take a look at your source, you know. But if that's true, that's bad. That means there's a narrative been going around about Canelo ducking him, and if he's blocking $10 million, you know, Al Heyman though. Here's the thing about Al. Al wants a place to call home. Al doesn't want to be. He doesn't really want to work. Okay, Oscar De La Hoya here, Eddie Hearn here. You will never see Al Heyman across from any of these guys. You'll never see it. He's just not that type of person. So yeah, Troll Master Mike 6969. Send that to DeVille Kurt on Instagram. But back to Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn. It makes you wonder. When did Oscar decide to start working with people? What had to happen for Oscar De La Hoya to say, you know what? Let's have these fights. I want the best fights. Bottom line. Because before, if you see, and I think what it was either two things. One, Turkey Al Sheikh stating like, hey, we will miss him. And that kind of geared Oscar like, oh shit. Because you don't want to piss off the Saudis because you don't never know what the Saudis are going to introduce to you. You know what I mean? So it's either him or DAZN themselves. Am I dead yet? Hey, Kurt and everyone. What's up? Am I dead yet? Saudi changed his mind. Yeah. Saudi are the DAZN execs. Because the DAZN is, you know, they pretty much tell. They write the checks to Oscar. They write the checks to Eddie Hearn. So it just makes me wonder, like, okay, where does all this friendliness come from? Which I don't have a problem with. I just wonder where it all of a sudden came from. That's all. Let's continue.
The DAZN just announced in Saudi Arabia you're going to see Matchroom versus Queensberry 5-on-5. Why not Matchroom versus Goldberg?
Yeah, I think I said it yesterday. I mean, look, our relationship is much better than Matchroom's relationship with Queensberry. I mean, to think like I've been promoting for 13 years. I've never met or spoken to Frank Warren in 13 years, which is actually quite, I mean, like, it's really not good for us. The reality is not, the rivalry is good because it keeps us hungry. Like, we're on the same platform. We get on. I still want to outperform Golden Boy. He still wants to beat Matchroom, and that he's a competitor.
And I do have to say, to that respect, I did come out swinging in the beginning. I do have to say that.
Yeah, I saw
the rivalry and this.
But that's okay.
But it's fine.
For me, look, we're trying to build the profile,
right.
Everything. The profile of our fighters, the profile of DAZN, my profile. And when I've got someone like Oscar having a pop at me, I never mind that. Like, it's actually positive in a way, as long as we can just understand, sure, it's a game. You know, if I come back and fire at Oscar, as long as he goes, right, you know, it's, you know, you have a smile on your face. With Queensberry, you know, if myself and Frank Warren can make a card, and it was done, you know, His Excellency and you know, the power and the financial power of Saudi Arabia. But, you know, once we broke bread, as we said,
Second year in a row, Chevy Equinox has been.
Okay, so Ring IQ Boxing last video talked about it. Samson Luckwicks is in the one who blocked it. Eddie Hearn contacted Samson. Okay. Well, yeah, Samson, that's David Benavidez's manager, right? Well, I think David, though, I think David, if he wanted that fight, he's just going to have to go where it is. And the problem with the PBC guys are, I don't know, I think it's an unspoken rule or an unwritten rule with his fighters, with the guys that he talks about, like, or he manages or whatever, advises. I think it's kind of like an unwritten rule. Like, look, don't go nowhere. You can't go anywhere. Where are you going? Oh no, you won't. You going where? No, you're not. You're staying right here. And it's just like David, look how long he's wanted the Canelo fight. And then if that's the case, okay, because I haven't heard it myself, I watch Ring IQ. So I'll probably look at the video later on today. But no, man, if you look at all the fighters that was with Al Heyman, they did not go anywhere. Look at Errol Spence. Look at Errol Spence. Didn't go anywhere. Sean Porter. Danny Garcia's still there. Edislandi Lara. Deontay Wilder finally came out of his shell. Finally. This cat turned down $100 million. So it's something that's going on over there with Al Heyman that he doesn't want to do deals with certain people. And that's it. You know? I think David is no duck, but at the same time, he doesn't put his foot down. Well, with the whole David Benavidez versus Canelo thing, I'm over it, people. I'm over the talks of Canelo and David Benavidez. Because here's my thing. David Benavidez has bigger fish to fry. I mean literally bigger fish to fry. I don't mean more expensive. I don't mean more marketable. No. I mean bigger fish to fry. He has to take on, look, his next fight, okay, his next fight is Alexander Volsnik. And I was watching David last night. And David is a guy that he's good at walking you down, just like he did Plant and a lot of other fighters. And I'll say this. I think 175 with David Benavidez, people are going to see him finally challenged. Because the one thing about 168, I don't think the guys could hurt him at 168. Now, the possibility is he could move up and bring that weight and power and strength and everything with him, because maybe he was starching himself at 168 to make 168. But at 175, guys like Alexander Volsnik is a challenge, bro. Because he's not just going to give up like that. And David's going to have to take it to Volsnik, because Volsnik's going to box the shit out of him. That walking you down, bop, bop, coming in, straight right, you know what I mean? Flurries. Yeah, that's good for people when you hurt them. But someone that's constantly moving, you're looking at a Ukrainian fighter here. And it's a great practice, people, for Dmitry Bivol. That's if Bivol that's if he gets past better beef. Yeah, Al Heyman hides in the shadows. He hides in the shadows with a cigar. You just see the smoke blow out. A little glimpse of his face. Then he goes back down. Oh. Facts. 175 has some big fights for his legacy. Absolutely, man. Look. This is my prediction for that, as talking about it. Skrilla 50 in the building. What's up, brother? Counterpunch to you. IFL has an interview with Eddie where he said he called Samson. And he said David Benavidez would fight on DAZN if they gave the U.S. rights to Amazon Prime in the U.S., even if DAZN is paying everything. Well, that's Al Heyman for you. But I'll say this. My prediction, Alexander Volsnik, Russian, Ukrainian, they're similar. How dare I? Yeah, I did. They're similar in style. The Eastern European style is different from like the UK style. You know, it's a different fighting style over there. And us knowing that, I think Volsnik, I don't think he's better than Bivol, but I think he fights similar to Bivol. So Bivol would be a great, or should I say, Volsnik would be a great tune-up preparation fight for someone like Bivol. But here's the problem. Okay, this is my prediction on this. I don't think Bivol will beat Peterviev. I don't. I don't think he'll beat Peterviev. If he does, I will be proud of him. But I don't pick him to beat Beterbiev, Peterviev, Beterbiev, whatever you want to. He doesn't beat Artur, bro. I don't think he beats Artur. That's why he won't fight Bivol, because Bivol will be defeated by Artur. He just hits too hard and he's too consistent. The pressure's on too much. And the best thing Bivol has for him is he can fight going backwards and forwards. He's going to have to. And he's going to have to do something to keep Beterbiev back and keep him honest, because if he's not, he's going to run over him. He's going to run right into him and he's going to run right over him. That's what's going to happen. That's it. And don't get it twisted. Bivol can bang. He can punch, but he's not nearly a puncher like Artur. But here's the thing. It's the punch for punch. Who can affect who with their punches? Damn how hard they punch. They're all trained professionals, so they punch to a certain degree anyway. The point is, who can hurt each other with the punching power that they have? And I think when you deal with, I think Artur can take Bivol's shots. So for those 5 or 6 shots that Bivol pop, 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 those punches that he throws, I think 6 to 7 of his punches is comparable to 2 punches or 3 punches from Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev's 2 punches is harder than Bivol's 6 punches. And I think Beterbiev will be able to take them and then ditch out more. That's what I believe. So I think if he does fight Volsnik, and if he can beat Volsnik, he'll be fighting Artur. That's what I want to see anyway, to be honest with you. He's not going to beat Artur, bro. He's not going to beat him. And I like both of them. I like them both. I like Bivol. Bivol's a cool dude. He's laid back. You know what I mean? I hate what they did to him because he's Russian and all that, because they didn't want to pay him for the long when he beat the shit out of Canelo. But, you know, that sucked because it was like a $5 million purse he couldn't get because he's like, oh, we're not going. Like, what the fuck? Why did you have him fight for then? What do you want him to do? Fight for free if you knew you weren't going to pay him? If you knew you weren't going to pay Bivol, why'd you have this man fight and do what people didn't even think he could do? Because they just thought Canelo was going to do to Bivol what he did to old-ass Kovalev. You guys remember that? And Kovalev came out there all starched and looking like an old drunk. You know what I mean? And his jab couldn't even break wind. I'm like, dude, your jab, you know what I mean? He couldn't even put these punches together. And Canelo just came in and ran over him. So people thought that was going to happen to Bivol. And it didn't. And he did all that and they ain't want to pay this man. So, yeah, I like Bivol. But Artur is different, man. It's just, you know, it's just different. Delahoya and Eddie Hearn Faceoff need to watch that. Oh, with Quan's Big Guns. We're watching it right now. I'm just pausing it, talking and keeping up with everybody. That's all I'm doing. Only one that beats Artur is Father Time. Yeah, he just got to get old and people will catch him and it may be a fight overnight. But here's the thing. This man is 38, 39. How old is Artur? 38 years old, 39 years old. Understand, this ain't a guy that sits back at the local bar. He ain't a drinker. He don't do drugs. He don't drink sodas. They don't do that type of shit. Why do you guys think Bernard Hopkins was able to fight as long as he did, to like 49 or something like that? It was insane. I think he's the oldest champion ever. He beat George Foreman's 45 years, 8 months old record by beating Shumanov, if you guys can remember. And Shumanov was a young little lion in training. And he took that young little lion out. Okay? Because Bernard Hopkins did not eat bad. He did not harm his body. He didn't abuse his body. That man knocked out Trinidad and Delahoya, then beat Roy Jones. Kurt, you should watch the Benavidez interview with the Boxing Voice that came out yesterday night. I'll take a look at it. I think Canelo figured out that the PBC has no money after Showtime left and used the contact they both signed to leave. If the money is right, fight. Well, we all know that they're having problems. I don't know what type of problems, but people already knew about that years ago. When Fred from Barbershop Conversations pulled a Judas pretty much on this whole little clique of people, you know, because he pretty much turned on Al. You know, but what it is, it ain't the fact he turned on him. Let me rephrase. What Fred from the Barbershop Conversations did was he's seen that these fights are not getting made and they should get made. And he's seen the same shit. Whereas a lot of people would just turn a blind eye and pretend like, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay, and it wasn't okay. Because a lot of these fights that should have been made, some of them never got made because of Al Heyman. Al Heyman wanted to be the man that owned his fighters, and he wanted his fighters to fight themselves and only themselves. He didn't want those guys to go elsewhere and to fight these other guys for other possibilities or any of that. He didn't want that. He didn't care about that. All he cared about was what he could do for the fighters that he advised. That's all he wanted to do. He didn't care about the best fighting the best. He could give a shit about the fans. That's why he doesn't do interviews, people. Al Heyman don't care about the public, the fans, or anybody. He cares about business, how good business is for him, and the fighters that he advises. Nothing more, nothing less, people. If you haven't heard it, you've heard it here first. Okay? So it is what it is. Psycho Crush in the building. Counterpunch to you, brother. Let's continue.
And, you know, there have been situations in the past. I mean, Oscar just did it with PBC, where he did Ryan against Tank. Look at how much money that made for everybody. That was a situation where coming together made sense. It should be easier for us. I still think it's difficult with other promoters, certain promoters and certain platforms, because they don't want to share, in my opinion, as much as we do, some of them. But as people lose deals, as people have to service fighters, sure, you know, we've all got obligations to dozens of fighters. So we need to keep them active.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Eddie, making that fight with PBC, Ryan Garcia. It was not easy at all. It was very, very difficult, but when you make it happen and you fight for your partner the way we did, we fought for the zone to be part of that promotion, and what happens? You get the biggest fight of the year for boxing. So platforms have to come together, promoters have to come together, and fighters are willing to fight each other. That's the message that we send as promoters. You know, fighters are willing to fight each other. Let's just come together and make this happen.
I find one of the biggest obstacles is the managers and the advisors. Do you know what I mean? Because you're an ex-fighter, you know the fighters want the fights. We want the fights. I think one of the biggest sort of incorrect perceptions from fans and people is that promoters stop the fights. We want the biggest fights. One, because the biggest fights make us money, but two, we don't want to sit ringside at a fight knowing actually, like one of the worst feelings I ever have is going to my own average show. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to go to a show and go, can't believe we've had to pay this guy X and he's in a one-sided fight. You know why? Because we got talked into it. Sure. Doing it. Those, for me, that's the main focus of our business now, is to stop, is to say no. And if we have to lose a fighter en route because we're not delivering the best product for our broadcaster, we have to be prepared to do it. That's one of the biggest challenges, you know, like, and boxing is a unique sport where anybody, there's no barriers to enter. You could be dealing with a manager who has absolutely no experience of boxing, absolutely no experience of how to guide a fighter, and you're locked in a tussle trying to deliver for the zone, trying to make the right fight for your business, trying to make the right fight for his career. It's not easy. And I think we all have to, as promoters, sometimes say no and say, no, that's not a fight we're prepared to do. And, you know, sometimes you hang on to a fighter because it's like ego, you don't want to let him go. You know, it's just like, and we've started to say to fighters, look, you know, we think maybe you should look elsewhere because that's not a fight that's going to deliver value. If we don't deliver value for DAZN and our subscribers, you know, we're not doing the right job.
Oscar, what do you think of, you've been an influential figure in boxing for more than 30 years, going back to the Olympics in 1992. What do you think of the state of boxing today, where it is now, compared to where it was when you were first coming up?
Well, the problem now is that the big fights are not getting made. To Eddie's point, you know, we have to come together. That's the bottom line. Whether it's managers, whether it's promoters, fighters want to fight each other. You know, fighters, yes, are thinking more about the money. They're thinking more about the bottom line, which makes it a little more difficult because sometimes they don't understand the economics of the fight, of the actual fight. You know, they have all these whispers in their ears, and so it's really difficult for a promoter or for a network to make this fight happen. But over the years, I've noticed now that, for instance, I've worked with Al Heyman, I've worked with Eddie Hearn, I've worked with everyone, Bob Arum, all the promoters out there, and when you work together, it's like having various platforms promoting a pay-per-view. There's more numbers, there's more pay-per-view buys. It can only get better for the sport, for the actual fight. So what I see different now is that promoters are, yeah, willing to work together with the right fight. But back in the day, promoters would never work together. And therefore, boxing is better today, I believe, than it was in the past. You're creating these mega fights now. We just did 1.23 million homes with Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. There's mega fights we can do together that can surpass that.
Do you really believe that? Because boxing, you were a mainstream star in your fighting days. I don't know how many mainstream stars there are in boxing today, and that's what's, I think, is needed to do the kind of numbers you're talking about.
Well, the Olympics was a big part. I was part of the 1992 Olympic Games. NBC televised it globally. You won a gold medal, you became an instant star. So that obviously helped me a lot. But I strongly feel that when you have the right talent and you're bringing him up the right way, you can create stars. You just have to make sure you have the right opponents, the right marketing, the right platform. I mean, DAZN has been incredible. Eddie Hearn has been doing a great job promoting these fighters and making sure that boxing is alive. And in the UK, what you've done is phenomenal. You know, I would love to go to the UK and do some work there the way he's doing work here in the US.
Okay, let me pause right there. Azism, much love back to you. PBC, they're on their own island when it comes to working with others. Listen, Oscar De La Hoya. Now, I don't really know if I don't know if he was prompted to say this shit. I just wonder if he believes what he says. I think that's a crock of shit. I don't think Oscar De La Hoya meant what he said. I think he's just saying that for the sake of saying that because Oscar De La Hoya was like, oh, I would love to be doing what I'd love to be doing in the UK what Eddie does in the USA. I believe that part. Oh, yeah, because I'm pretty sure that if Oscar had an opportunity, if he had a lifeline, or if he had any type of way to get to the UK and have a great fight there, or a good fight card there, yeah, he would do it. He just doesn't have those type of connections. See, Eddie Hearn came across the pond. Oscar did not. Okay? Oscar at the time was worried more about the cash cow, and that was Canelo Alvarez. But I think he kind of micromanaged him too much, and a lot of little things were done, and I think they fell out because of that. Canelo's a grown man at this point, so after he signed that contract for what 365 million. No, but no, I don't think Oscar De La Hoya believes the shit he said. I think that was just made up simply because Eddie Hearn, you're the worst promoter. Edward Hearn, you've ruined Canelo's career. You've ruined his career. What else? What else did he say? You've ruined Anthony Joshua's career. Now we hear this shit. Oh, he's doing a wonderful job. Really? It do make you wonder, like, was Oscar sober when he was doing those rants? Eddie Hearn, you've ruined his career, Eddie. Good point. Edward Hearn, he's the worst promoter. You need to stay in the UK. Don't come over here. Those are the things that Oscar said. And since those are the things he said, I don't know why he's going back on what he's saying now. The last thing you can do is go back on that. You know what I mean? Like, if he thinks he was a shit promoter, like, he should call him out. But now he's doing that probably because of Turkey Al-Sheikh. But again, I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, that's bullshit. He don't believe that because that wasn't that long ago. Okay? See, 2022, AJ lost to Usyk. And I forget when Bivol, what was it? Bivol fought Canelo in what? 22? So, no. I don't believe any of that shit. Let's continue.
It can only help boxing. And so I just feel that as long as we can come together, the platforms, the promoters, the managers, there's no reason why we should be bigger than life.
I think all Eddie heard was Eddie does a phenomenal job. I think that's all he heard.
There's a bit where he said, "Come to the UK." I was like, "No, we're It's really interesting. Like, one thing that frustrates me so much is understanding the economics. That's one thing, and I think what Oscar would have done coming through, as a lot of big fighters do. Anthony Joshua is another good example. Canelo Alvarez. They understand the economics of the show. Like, where we get to now is sometimes you'll sit down with a fighter, and the value of a purse for them might be $4 million. They think they should be getting 10 or 15. Sure. It's so transparent the way you do a big fight. There's no hidden numbers. The gate is open for all to see. The pay-per-view number, all the revenue is open for all to see. The costs are open for all to see. Sure. So we know the numbers, the actual numbers, but boxing is a unique business where sometimes someone will come along. Could be a promoter willing to make a charge, could be a mad investor, could be Saudi Arabia, could be a new platform, and they will pay that number. Do you know what I mean? But for us as a business, that's sometimes the most frustrating point is you sit down with two fighters, Ryan against Devin. And Devin could say, I want X, and Ryan says, I want X, and you look at the show and you go, without sharing the upside, you can't get there, guys. Okay, Tiafimo, great example. And he's got his numbers, and like last, he said, voices in the ear, the people that don't know the numbers, and it's only a balance sheet. It's not rocket science.
And as I'm sitting down here, I'm thinking, you know what? You get it. You understand the numbers. You understand the economic of what a fight can generate, of what the actual real numbers are. But you have somebody who disrupts. It disrupts the business, and maybe it's a one-off. Maybe it's they're here for a short period of time. We're in this for the long run. I'm in this I want to be like Bob, and retire. Well, not like Bob, but yeah, I want to be as old as he is and still promoting, but obviously doing the right thing. And the right thing is right here. I think that we know the numbers, we understand the economic, so it's easier to do business. But when somebody comes in and disrupts the market, and the fighters see that, and then fighters get the whispers in the ears, then it's difficult for promoters like us to really nail down a fight that we want to make because the numbers are.
So you must have experienced that in your career. I mean, you know, you were in all the biggest fights. You would have gone in, looked at a fight, and gone, my number for that fight is X.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And sometimes the piece of paper that was presented to you shows that actually it's the wrong number, but it's still your number. You're entitled to it. Sure. I mean, you know, and that's you have to almost like a fighter's going to give you the number.
Sure.
Sometimes a fighter will say to me, I don't care what that says. This is my number. It's like, well, you have to care what that you know, but the fighter is the fighter, and you know, I'm sure you've had occasions where your promoter said this is the person, someone said to you, no, actually, I think, you know, this is a tough fight, you should be getting this, and I'm sure you got it.
I know what you're talking about. Eddie and Bob, Oscar and Bob got along all the time. Never met I want to ask you though about Saudi Arabia, because they do represent disruption. There's no question it's been a net positive because big fights are being made. Well, we had the Day of Reckoning in December, AJ Ngannou, Bivol Beterbiev down the line. Big fights are getting done because of investment from Saudi Arabia. How do you balance? You've been doing business there for a little while now. How do you balance that and work that into a yearly schedule?
Okay, so the first thing is I hate you're taking boxing away from the UK and from America. There's this thing, it's called the world, right?
Let me pause there, because the funny thing what Eddie said, I hate what people saying about, you know, taking fights away from America. Oscar was the prime culprit. He was the prime guy. He was that dude that said, no, we need to make fights over here. They're taking all of our fights and taking them to Saudi Arabia. These are American fights. Fuck you, Turkey al-Sheikh. Edward Hearn, you're stealing our fights, you bum. Why don't you get in the ring with me and I can show you what a real man can do? You say you're working out. How about I work my foot in your ass? I'm sick of you, Eddie Hearn. Edward Hearn. Eddie Hearn. Edward, Eddie. Eduardo.
And Saudi Arabia sits in it. Our plan, along with the zone, is global expansion. So if there is money coming into the sport from a new region, we need to embrace that. If that money is enabling us to see the fights that keep boxing great, even better. But we must still focus on other markets, and particularly our domestic markets. Although we're making a move in America, our domestic market is really the UK. Oscar's is America. Whatever fights go to Saudi Arabia, great, but we must maintain a strong schedule and a strong presence in our domestic markets. And that's a focus for us moving forward. And another problem, which, you know, we talked about with the fighters, is that number that the fighter might want can be achievable in Saudi Arabia. So sometimes the fighter will wait, or they'll be told there's an opportunity there, or they might get. The reality is not many will, because it's only going to be, you know, 5, 6 shows a year, whatever it's going to be. But fights like Bivol Beterbiev that can get made instantly, I don't think that fight would have got made without Saudi Arabia. Fury Usyk wouldn't have got made without Saudi Arabia. So we have to embrace it, because we can't deny the fighters the opportunity. And seeing the growth there firsthand is quite amazing, to be honest with you, as a country. And you know, you're dealing with a guy in His Excellency who is just the biggest fight fan you've seen. He knows our stable from British champions to unified world champions. And the vision that they had, when you sit down and you go for a fight card, you talk about being excited to go to a show. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. But we must focus our mind. This is not let's all go and set up an office in Riyadh and just emigrate the business. This is embrace the investment and the opportunity for boxing, but maintain the strength in our core markets, particularly our domestic territories.
Yeah.
Well, nicely put by Eddie. You know, like the Bivol Beterbiev fight, that wouldn't have got made. It wouldn't have got made because for one, okay, we all know Mauricio is all about the money. See, before Turkey Al-Sheikh came into the picture, his whole complaint was, I'm not going to allow Bivol to fight for the WBC. Or I'm not going to allow that fight to happen because of Dmitry Bivol being Russian. If you guys can remember that. Now, all of a sudden, people, it's okay. It is? Why? Because Turkey Al-Sheikh coming in with those damn greenbacks. And that's what he sees. I will now explain why it is okay now to have the Bivol versus Beterbiev fight, because it's the fan fights that we want to see. Thank you to His Excellency for giving me all kinds of fucking money. That's all it is. Money. Money talks. All that bullshit runs a marathon. That's exactly what happened. That fight wouldn't have happened. That fight wouldn't have happened at all. Usyk, Fury, that wouldn't have happened. Tyson would have, I want 80%. You know? I'll take 60 on a rematch if I lose. 60% on a rematch? Ryan Garcia is morphing into Oscar Jr. He is, bro. The more I look at Ryan, it's like, you know what though? Ryan is an unfiltered Oscar De La Hoya. See, understand, Oscar De La Hoya did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. He did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And I'm sure Ryan does a lot of stuff that we don't know he does. You know? And you know who Ryan reminded me of? When he said, I don't do cocaine. I'll take a test right now to let people know I don't do cocaine. He reminded me of Charlie Sheen. Remember when Charlie Sheen got interviewed after getting fired from 2.5 Men? And, you know, he was all like, oh, I don't do coke. I'm clean. I got tiger blood. I banged 7-gram rocks. What the fuck? 7-gram rocks? No, bro. No. Listen. That's what it's reminding me of. Ryan, and let me tell you something about Ryan. Ryan's 25 years old. I think Ryan's trying to be someone that he's not. Me personally, I just think the drugs, the whatever, alcohol, like if you guys noticed that like these tats just kind of grew on him all of a sudden, like, okay, where was those tats when you first started? If you were that type of person, you would have had those type of tats then. You know what I mean? You don't wait till in your mid-20s to all of a sudden, now I got shit over here, shit over here, shit here, shit here, shit behind. I'm like, okay, and I don't even know what that is. They look like 2 televisions or some shit Todd McFarlane made for Spawn or some shit. I don't know. And, you know, not that I'm against tattoos. It's just I know people get them to try to hide or mask something that they're probably not. Or they're dealing with something that they need mutilation to deal with, like Miguel Cotto. If you guys remember Miguel Cotto was a guy that he used to have hair. He didn't have fucking tattoos. His dad dies. All of a sudden, he inks half his body. You're like, whoa, what the hell is this? What's going on, Miguel? You know, I want to dedicate this to my father. This tattoo is for him. This is his initials. And this is my tattoo of serenity. Ryan has shitty tattoos. Yeah, they suck, dude. They look like what? Who the fuck drew that shit? You need to fire that dude. Now I'm gonna tell you, like Teofimo Lopez's tats, they're clean. You know, the little circles and shit. I don't know what they mean, but they look clean. Bars. They look good. You know, even when he has the little symbol there and another symbol there. I mean, they're not all over his fucking body. You know what I thought that was? You know what I thought that was with Ryan Garcia? I thought Ryan Garcia's tattoos, I thought that was chest hair. I said, damn, he a hairy motherfucker, ain't he? Until I looked, I said, no, that's a tattoo he got on him. Yeah, Black Ink Crew. He went some damn where. He went to Whack Ink Crew. Shit. Dude talking that. You know? But and that's crazy. He had the Keebler elf tattoo. He was just drawing some shit. I don't like, I don't know. I don't like, no, dude. I think Ryan got those tattoos because he wants people to look at him in a certain light. He wants people to look at him in a certain way. That's what I think. You know what I mean? Because he got them all of a sudden.
So I totally agree. I think Your Excellency has disrupted the market, but has been doing a phenomenal job in making the big fights happen. I strongly feel we haven't done business with them just yet, but it's not an issue. But what I have a concern of is I'm in the business to create a star, right? The way I've handled Canelo, the way I've handled Ryan, the way I promoted Mayweather's 15 fights and Pacquiao, and the list goes on and on and on. What I'm seeing is, okay, how can I create a star? So it starts in America. It starts or in Las Vegas, because in Las Vegas, and a good friend of yours, Bob Arum, once told me, once you start the fire in Vegas, then the wildfire just spreads around the world. And I believe that. I strongly believe that. So if we can find a way where Your Excellency or Riyadh can time the event perfectly where it can be shown here on a Saturday night. And we can somehow...
We're okay, because it is prime time in the UK. Right, that's where you're great. And I think he's right, that one of the issues with Fury and Garnu is it came in at 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's not a time zone.
It's not a time zone that's going to generate
a significant pay.
I would have loved to know the numbers, what they did here in America. I'm pretty sure that they were not that good. But if it was at the peak moment, the peak time in the U.S., 8 p.m. Pacific, it would have done massive, crazy numbers promoting it. See, my issue is that, yes, let's spend more marketing dollars in the U.S. for those overseas fights, and I think America would embrace it. There's a formula, there's a system, there's a timing that's worked for us. And I think that, yes, boxing is global, and Your Excellency is doing an amazing, phenomenal job. It's just the timing that we have to get right.
Before I finish, sanctioning bodies. You were at a campfire with Mauricio Sulaiman recently and some of the promoters out there. Also, you've been dealing with sanctioning bodies going all the way back to your days as a fighter. When I talk to casual boxing fans, one of the most confusing things they find is who's a champion, what does this title mean, what's a secondary. There's just so much jumbled stuff out there when it comes to sanctioning bodies. Where do you guys stand on what their role should be, and quite frankly, should they be phased out by the influential people in the sport?
Yes.
Look, I mean, my opinion about the sanctioning bodies, yes, I've been dealing with them forever, as a fighter and as a promoter. Fighters funded them. Yeah, of course, yeah, right, exactly. But fighters love being champions. Fighters love being champions. I loved holding my belt when I won a world title, but I didn't love paying the sanctioning fee. WBC, WBO, IBF, and WBA. Yes, they've done a great job in making champions and crowning a champion, okay? With the hard work that the fighter does and the promoter and the managers, everybody involved. But a lot of times when you have 4 belts, the consumer, the public gets confused. They're not interested in who's fighting who because the belt is involved. We have to again find a way, a happy medium somewhere, to make sure that the fight fan is not discouraged by these organizations, because every single day their rules are changing every single time, and it's very, very confusing. Look, I stick and I stand by the ring belt. That's it. Yes, I own it, and I'm going to say it, but I do not get involved whatsoever. There's a board of writers who are professional, who know what they're doing, who rank the fighters, and in order to win the championship belt, you do it in the ring, and in order to lose the championship belt, it happens in the ring. And guess what? There's no sanctioning fees. No whatsoever. So if you take a look at those ratings, there's no confusion whatsoever.
Eddie, you dealt with Dan and Sonny, you dealt with the Ring Magazine belt for a minute there.
Yeah, but I think the problem is you have to have rules in every organisation, but you also have to have the ability to act with common sense. And the problem is we can talk about a governing body, but depending on the situation, we can love them or hate them. So when you've got a champion in a governing body, and you've got a mandatory that quite frankly means absolutely nothing to the broadcast, to the fans or the sport, and you're getting told you have to fight him, that's a moment where you go, I can't stand these governing bodies. Now, if you've got that mandatory contender, you're saying, of course, come on, you have to apply your rules. So there just has to be a common sense. I mean, one of the, we talk about Tank against Ryan. Don't forget, there was no belt on the line. That was actually the first time that a pay-per-view of that size hasn't been an undisputed championship or a unified world championship. So I think that every fighter, we have to have that conversation. Every fight. Whether it's Anthony Joshua or Canelo when he worked with him, or vice versa, and just to let you know, here's the invoice, which comes very quickly from the governing body, normally on a Thursday before the fight. This is what you're paying, and if there's no cap, which a couple of governing bodies don't have, and it's 3%, and it's 3% of $50 million. You're paying $1.5 million times 4 in an undisputed fight. You're paying $6 million, and there will come Oscar's so right about fighters loving a belt. We've always talked about, do you move away from the governing body? You would have to go to your stable, to the fighter, saying, are you okay to never fighting for the WBC, WBO, and they'll be like, sure, there's other fighters drink. But when they get to a level, but some of them even, like Canelo, a good example where he wants the belts on the line. Like he could easily fight with no belts on the line. Yeah. But he does want the team, carry the legacy, the undisputed, and like Oscar did it as well as a fighter. So I think, is it the money, is it the rules, is it just like, you've got situations like Jaya Patai the other day that just don't make sense. But it is also a difficult job for the governing bodies. Yeah. Don't forget they've got me phoning them all the time, Oscar phoning them all the time, or PBC. Well, you move this fighter down. Why isn't he mandatory? Why are you calling this? Why are you doing that? So, but also, although it's confusing to the fight fan, I still think the glory of a world championship belt, it's not that confusing, but I echo, I don't own a Ring Magazine belt, but I do echo the beauty and the power of it. And I'll tell you something now, to a fighter, the Ring Magazine belt is everything. It's the one that tells you. Yeah.
So basically what they should be saying, they should get together and get rid of every belt there is. Especially when someone unifies the belts, let them go. Let them go back. Since Canelo left Oscar, I guess Ryan and Jaime are the only noticeable fighters that Oscar has. Pretty much. Kurt, you are starting to look like Ryan. I just want to give praises to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I drink and I smoke, so what? Like everybody else does. Watching Riley, I truly believe Ryan suffers from anxiety disorder. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with that kid. I know he's rich, so I don't care. I just don't want him to quit again. You know what I mean? Because, now he's going to have to fight. Because Devin Haney's coming to fight. And after that footage was released, oh, he's coming to fight people. Absolutely. He's coming to kick some butt. I think it's more like low self-esteem. A lot of famous and rich people have it. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So
You're the one.
You're the one
In the division.
That's it.
Like
You're the one.
and the fighters,
The rules haven't changed in more than 100 years. Like literally, the rule. Yeah, there's still some integrity in boxing, so, which I love.
Well, hey, Oscar, good to see you guys in the same room together. Hopefully the first time of many in 2024.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love it.
Thanks, buddy.
So that is that, people. And let me counterpunch. I think it was called cordial. I think it was a cordial thing. Let's see if I can get this right. Nah, wait. We have to. There we go. There we go. That's better. There we are. Face projection. Got the Anthony Joshua versus Ngannou video back after the copyright. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what was up with that. Because I don't see that there was any material that they had a problem with. I don't know. But it is what it is. But yeah, I like the face-off between those two. I think it was a lot of ass kissing, and I think really it just shows you that when you have someone that's willing to make fights and willing to pay the money that the fighters want, I think all what matters to these promoters, I don't think they care. I don't think they care one bit. Let's just be real. Let's call it a buck. I don't think that Oscar, hey, I do think, he mentioned a little bit. Well, it's prime time. I just wish it was a good time. Well, look, you think those fighters really care what goes on in Vegas if they're getting a guarantee of $5 million? Look at Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller, his life has changed. This man is looking at a backdrop over somewhere because he got a check. And you know what's funny? You don't hear anything about the armed robbery thing no more. What the hell happened to that? Yeah, but I think it was pretty good. I think it was a pretty decent, pretty decent sit down. I did want to see some authenticity though, of hey, I didn't like how you did this, or I didn't like how you did this. I didn't like how you promoted Canelo. I think I was better than you. I didn't like how you did Anthony Joshua. I think I could do a better job than you. Those type of things. I think AJ is going to win on points against Ngannou. Tomorrow or Sunday, I'm doing the breakdown. I'm doing the fight prediction and breakdown. And I may do it today. I may do it today. So I know I have a lot of videos I want to do for the first of the month. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Is looking over a balcony into a sea of cheeseburgers. Yeah, I guess. I think he needs to put those damn cheeseburgers down and focus on getting that fat off of them. Big hunky, chunky, husky ass dude. And he was doing good, and I think he ran out of gas. That's what happened to Jarrell Miller. He ran out of gas. I think it was more him running out of gas versus Dubois' punches. I think Dubois punching him. Dubois was landing hard shots, bro. And it shows you Jarrell Miller never still went down. It was stopped. This man didn't have any gas left. He didn't have nothing in the tank. But he was getting caught with shots. Bah, 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 bah. He was catching them, bro. He was getting caught. And I think that plus fatigue, yeah. equaled his downfall. Bill Haney looks dirty and nasty at times. That's another video I'm going to do concerning Ryan's dad, and I'm going to go into depth with that. Wilder versus Miller, the day of reckoning 2, make it happen. Absolutely. Skrilla 50 in the building. Let's make it happen. Let's see it. Why not? And I think that should be in the States. I think that could be at the Barclays. Now watch Wilder come on. And if Wilder loses to Miller, he's finished. Because then the torch will be passed to Miller. Miller will go back to Saudi Arabia where Wilder won't. Yeah. Or Miller versus White. Now that'll be good. Yeah, give me Miller versus White. And that'll be a good fight because, you know, I think, you know what? I think Miller has a better chance of beating White than he did Daniel Dubois. Because Dillian White, he's a guy that could get hurt. Believe it or not, I think Dubois has a better chin than Dillian White does. Right? I just don't think Dillian White will get knocked out before he'll quit. You know what I mean? So, you know, pick your poison. But, you know, Dillian White's going to, he's going to, I think he hits a little harder, but I think Jarrell can take it. And he could probably beat Dillian White. I think he could beat Dillian White. You know? But I think Dillian White has that jab. That jab, you know, and he wings his shot. He chops with his punches. The buildup between Miller versus White would be classic. It would be. It would be a good thing. You know, but I think this is what Jarrell Miller does, and I don't understand Jarrell for a minute. Jarrell Miller, he brings his energy out towards people from the UK, and I don't think he'll do that with Dillian White simply because, you know, he's reached out to Dillian White. Remember when Dillian White got in that little trouble back in 19 with the contaminated findings and all that? Well, it was Jarrell Miller that was like, hey, man, I know what you're going through. I know what you feel, B. I know what you feel. I know what you're going through, B. I was hurting inside, B. Dubois hasn't been knocked down. Dubois hasn't been knocked down, so that means he just took a knee. Okay. James Ali Bashir said Miller came back to the corner completely gassed out in round 5. I believe that. He didn't have anything. You know, he was just, you remember when he hit him, he was just like, because he didn't have anything to do. Yeah, well, I think that's worse because that means he quit before he got knocked out. Most people would respect you getting knocked out before you ever just said, you know what, fuck it. So that's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels. That's wrong on so many levels, man. So many levels. So, yeah. Now I want to see. I would like to see Miller and Dubois again. I would like to see that again. You know, but Miller in shape though, not that bullshit that he was claiming to be. You know, wasn't Triple D knocked down multiple times against Kevin Ladena? Well, yeah, I think so. I think it was a delayed knockdown. Against Joyce, he had a shattered orbital. He didn't know that yet, though. He didn't know that yet until they checked him. He quit, though. He still quit. You just justify it from the fact, oh, it was broken, so maybe it was a good idea. So the kind of people let it pass because he did have a broken bone. Well, he felt it. He felt getting jabbed in his eye. His eye was swollen, bro. He didn't have a physician there to tell him what was going on. He quit. This man was like, oh, he took a knee. He did a Colin. Keyshawn Davis was stripped of his victory when he was found out smoking weed. So what will happen to Ryan Garcia before the fight admitting that he smokes? Well, him saying that maybe is a way for him to get out of the fight. It's sad to say, but you don't say shit like that. I smoke weed and I drank. Why would you say that? You don't need a doctor to tell an orbital bone has been shattered. Okay. That man quit. He's a quitter. He's the black quitter, isn't he? He's a black quitter. But I'll say this, though. I'll say this to the credit of Danny Dubois. Billy Joe Saunders started saying that same thing. He fucking quit. I wouldn't have quit. But you quit. When Canelo, bah! Bah! It was over with. You know? Hired you as his lawyer. I know paid talk when I hear it. I didn't hear it, to be honest. I didn't hear it, to be honest. I think Bill, with all his son's money, really looks clean. I've seen videos of him. The man doesn't look like he showers. It looks dirty. That's why. Nah, man. He's just like he just rocks the scruff. You know, he rocks the scruff. You know what I mean? So, but no one here fought on or played on with shattered bones. No, I can't say I have. Can't say that. I mean, so that jab. Yeah, dude. So it's even worse if he quit, though. I mean, if he quit, that's worse. So, I mean, I don't care if he officially went down or it hurt. Like, that was worse. He quit. He quit. Hey, that's it. He quit. Bars. But I mean, he got a strike back. He got a strike back when he beat Jarrell Miller, because Jarrell Miller was talking about how much he quit and how he was going to make him quit, but he didn't make him quit. So he went in there and did what he's supposed to do. Triple D. Now I am the daddy. I am the daddy now. Bring it on, baby. I am your daddy. But yeah, man, that's it. That's definitely it. Usyk made him take a knee. Okay. Triple dad. That's bad. Somebody make you take a knee. Take a knee. Oh. Sad, man. Sad. But guys, it was cool. It was great. The Oscar De La Hoya versus Eddie Hearn. The Eddie Hearn versus Oscar De La Hoya face-off. It was authentic. I wanted to see more back and forth, regardless of how they feel about each other now. I wanted to see how and what really transpired that they could rehash and talk about a little bit, kind of get up on each other's skin. You know? Who you got, Kurt? Taylor versus Catterall. Catterall. Duh. But anyway, you guys, God bless. Have a happy Friday. And everyone has been Counterpunched. Peace!